So if you are a fan of the note of cherry, the smell of cherry, I've got a real treat for you here today. This is a brand that I've actually covered on my channel many years ago. I've had the opportunity to chat with the creative director of the brand. Here we have a fragrance that came out 2 years ago in 2020. This is their cherry-based fragrance from the brand Room 1015. This is called Cherry Punk. I'm excited to give you my thoughts on this fragrance, so make sure to stay tuned. Now, before I begin today's video and I tell you all about Room 1015's Cherry Punk, a cherry-based fragrance that also has some other darker elements in here as well, I do want to start things off by saying that if you are a fan of fragrance-related content, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Hit that bell icon so you could be notified whenever I do upload future videos to the channel. And of course, click where it says enable all notifications. This way you don't miss any of my uploads. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it or if you took something of value from today's episode. Now, the other fragrance from this brand that I covered is called Electric Wood, and it is this vetiver, woodsy kind of a fragrance, dark yet sophisticated personality about it. And here we see a bit of a brighter expression, not brighter in terms of the notes that are in here, because there are some dark notes. There's saffron, there's leather, so on and so forth, but there's something about that sweet, tart quality of the cherry. And you all know what I'm talking about, right? If you've tried fragrances like the new Cherry Oud by Guerlain, or if you've tried Lost Cherry by Tom Ford, you know that bright, syrupy, sweet, almond-like personality that cherry can sometimes have. Now, there are some contrasting elements that really make this fragrance unique. So you have the saffron, you have some other spices, you have the leather, but then you also have some other sweet ingredients like tonka bean with a touch of patchouli in the base to really add this green tonality to the fragrance. And I also want to mention that there is going to be a discount code left down below if you want to get a deal on this fragrance. I corresponded with a representative from the brand and said, if you do decide to cover this on your channel, we'd be more than happy to give your subscribers a discount code. So if you'd like to take advantage of it while it's still valid, please be sure to do so. In any case, I'm excited to give you my in-detail thoughts on the smell. Let's start things off with a quick look at the presentation. Now, of course, as the name implies, Cherry Punk, you're gonna get a lot of cherry from this fragrance. And cherry is an ingredient that I absolutely love. Of course, cherry is the main note in Tom Ford's Lost Cherry. It's also in Cherry Oud, I think it's called, by Guerlain. And I've smelled cherry in a number of other fragrances as well. And I think it's a really fascinating note, and a note that has been fairly underutilized. I would love to see it being used a lot more in fragrances, and I would say the same thing about the note of plum. There's something about those two ingredients that are so different from the other fruity notes that we've seen or smelled in overabundance and in a surplus amount, like the pineapples of the world, the apples of the world, the lemons of the world, so on and so forth. So this is a breath of fresh air, and I'm really appreciating it. Now, while this fragrance could be compared to fragrances like Lost Cherry by Tom Ford or what have you, I think once you actually take the time to smell it comprehensively and to give it a chance to really dry down and evolve on your skin, you'll notice that this one is actually a lot darker than meets the eye, or the nostril for that matter. So this one has this underlying leather accord, and the saffron in the top obviously contributes to the leather in the base. And so it has this darker personality about it, and that's why I think a lot of people have compared this also to Bulgari Black. I personally don't find it to be similar to black. I think it has a very characteristic smell, and I think that while I have smelled many leather-based fragrances, I think this one is so different in the sense that it's paired with that bright, vibrant, tart, and sweet cherry in the opening. So really, it's kind of a dichotomy, and it's a contrast of smells that I think is really enjoyable, and that really adds the punk element to the cherry. So I do imagine somebody who's very obsessed with the punk culture, whether, you know, and I was a 90s, I was born in the 80s, but I'm a 90s kid. So I grew up with, you know, Blink-182 and Green Day and a lot of these other punk bands and other more contemporary bands as well. So when I smell this fragrance and I think about the concept, it really resonates with me, you know, and it's sentimental to a certain degree. I think this is a wonderful fragrance. I think it's a beautiful expression of the note of cherry, even even though I think the cherry note, as it's been done in other fragrances, is synthetic, but I think it's that expression of the cherry in combination with the spices, the tonka bean, that slight vanillic sweetness and the dry down with that earthy patchouli to really ground the fragrance. Very wonderfully done. Very well done. I'm really impressed with this fragrance, and it almost kind of has like this unique 1 million Privé sort of a personality. So when I smelled it on one occasion that I wore it, it actually reminded me of 1 million Privé, which I think is discontinued now. So if you can kind of imagine like the uniqueness of that fragrance, but with a little bit of cherry and leather infused into it, this is a wonderful fragrance. Definitely make sure you can check it out or sample it if you can. I'm gonna leave all of the websites down below to where you can locate it, so I really hope you have the opportunity to try this one soon. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. Now, first up, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, I did compare this one to Lost Cherry by Tom Ford, and I think that that's probably the closest comparison that you're gonna find, but this one has the leather, and I know with Lost Cherry, it has the griot syrup, and it has a lot of these other syrupy, sweet, balsamic, viscous elements to it that this fragrance doesn't have, right? So this fragrance does do its own thing. I appreciate that unique undercurrent of leather that is in here, and the overall smell, perfect for this time of the year. In terms of the longevity, you can expect about 8 hours on your skin. The projection for this fragrance was great for the first hour of application. It did radiate beyond an arm's length. Right around hour 6 or 7, it became an elbow's length scent. Right around hour 8 or 9, it became a skin scent. Versatility, I think somebody who's a little bit younger will appeal to this fragrance or will appreciate this fragrance a little bit more, just because although it has some darker elements that I think might appeal to somebody who's a little bit older, the cherry is very bright. It pops on the skin. So for this one, I do think that it's catered more towards a younger crowd, perfectly unisex. You can wear this one dressed up or dressed down, and I think this one is great for the colder weather, so the autumn and the winter time. The presentation, I always appreciate when brands can change the color of the bottle to coincide with what the fragrance smells like, a little synesthesia there. And they also have another fragrance called Sweet Leaf, which is green. You can kind of imagine what that fragrance smells like. But my final verdict on this fragrance is it reminds me of a Tom Ford's Lost Cherry with leather. So if you can imagine that sweet, cherry, spicy, syrupy, saffron, exotic, vanillic, green, earthy, very well anchored and long lasting, I think you'll really enjoy this one. If you are a lover of cherry perfumes, try this one as soon as you can, please. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me today. That was my review of Cherry Punk by Room 1015, a 2020 release composed by Jerome Epinet. And Jerome Epinet is a perfumer for many Byredo fragrances, many Atelier Cologne fragrances. He's a very accomplished perfumer. I've had the pleasure of meeting him in person as well. Thank you so much for joining me. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Once again, hit that bell icon so you could be notified whenever I do upload these videos to the channel. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Love you guys. Thank you for joining me today, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.